Hey there, cats and kitties, I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 8 of the anime series, Hibike Euphonium. And this episode was actually a pleasant surprise to me because I hadn't expected, with this up-and-coming, audition process for all of these characters where they're really hunkering down and sort of, falling into obligation and necessity, the stress and strain of having to perfect their performances with their instruments and everything, and they're really going to be potentially set against each other. I was really relieved to see that we had a sort of festival episode, a day off, a vacation, if you will, episode where all of these characters get to sort of get away from all of that potential, burgeoning stress and strain and that kind of thing. Those dynamics between the characters, their relationships potentially becoming tested. They get to let their hair down in this episode because of the Agata Festival, which is days away as we start the episode, but it's June 5th, and of course we round out the episode with the day of the festival itself. And you had stuff like, of course, Hoozuki, this sort of hinted at love triangle, because you have Shuichi, who, very much as I speculated early on in the series, he's infatuated with Kumiko. She's oblivious to it. She really has no feelings for him in any way, shape, or form. They grew up together, and he's probably reading a little more into it and being more fascinated with her than she would ever give him the time of day, that kind of situation. But of course, Hoozuki, as we left off the previous episode, she is dying to know if there's anything going on between them because she has her own interests. And you got Midori being the cheerleader about this effect, trying to tell Hoozuki, go after him, go approach him, talk to him, reveal yourself, all this kind of stuff. And we have that awkward moment, which is kind of cliche, but I felt it was very naturally handled and very realistically handled through the course of this episode, where Shuichi finally makes his intentions known by asking Kumiko to the festival, while, all the while, Hoozuki is basically trying to ramp up the courage within herself to ask him, and so forth. And you have this just hilarious moment where Kumiko's mulling this over, and she's realizing, oh boy, he likes me, she likes him, and she really doesn't want to deal with it. Anyone who's ever been in that kind of predicament, you don't want to deal with it. And I love that awkward moment where she sort of escapes the classroom and Shuichi naturally follows. And then you have Kosaka coming out the door, and, without Kumiko knowing who it is, she grabs the person and she's like, I'm going with this person, that's who I'm spending the festival day with. And Kosaka's just like, okay. And then you have, of course, Hoozuki asking Shuichi, and I did like when we finally get to the festival, we get to see Midori's little sister, just absolutely kawaii, adorable, looking like the spitting image of her older sister and everything. And of course, seeing Hoozuki just decking herself out and really wanting to impress Shuichi, and you're not sure how it's going to play out. Is he going to find himself having an interest in her? And of course, again, very realistically, I thought, you have that moment where they're alone together and she just professes how much she likes him, and he can only but say, I'm sorry, because of his interest in Kumiko and such. And she puts on such a game face, as we all tend to do. There's that point toward the end of the episode where finally Midori and her little sister catch up with her, and she's still, even so, trying to keep on that game face and trying to seem happy-go-lucky, and it's not going to affect her. But then the tears flow, and it's like, I have to just give accolades to this series for its emphasis on real-life scenarios as, not only the band framework, as I said, the real lives of these characters. I think I was saying as such in my previous episode discussion video, where the lives of these characters outside of school, outside of band class, these are all things that are going to be, focused upon, because that's how real life is. There's only so much, as we saw with the Aoi character, that she could put into the band scenario because she had to think of her future. She left that scenario because her future was tantamount. She didn't want to risk and gamble it away like she felt she had in the past. And so we have these characters, even though it is a day off, it's still very heartening and even saddening to certain degrees for the Hoozuki character, and we've all been there. We've all had that unrequited love aesthetic, and I really felt like, even though these are themes that we see dealt with time and time again in artistic venues, whether it be stories, books, manga, anime, This particular anime series, I feel, is handling this stuff with a lot of class and a lot of realism, and I can give it no higher praise for that. I felt for the characters, I felt like a relatability as well as compassion toward Hoozuki and everything like that, and even sort of the goofy aspects with Asuka and her little clan, and you know, there's one still shot of them seeing some schoolgirls running, and they're kind of looking like, you know, remembering fondly back on their own days that young and such. But then, of course, you have the entire B level of the episode, if you will, being Kumiko's meeting with Kosaka, and Kosaka having a plan to sort of flesh out, you know, the best aspect of communicating to Kumiko what her dreams are and what their differences are. And the whole conversation, you know, of them climbing up this mountainside, I just felt like it was pitch perfect because they're playing off each other. They're there's a sarcasm, but there's also a truth to the words that, you know, Kosaka is issuing as far as her love for Kumiko. I don't know. I can't venture to say whether it's an actual romantic fascination that Kosaka has for Kumiko. Kumiko believes it's just her, you know, taking jabs at her and poking fun and being sort of sarcastic. But whether it's a romantic sort of love or infatuation, or whether it's a friend and familial, like sisters, there is a bond there that was stressed and strained, much as I think we're going to be seeing with these characters up and coming. I mean, with the fact that, you know, Hoozuki has now realized Shuichi's infatuation is more for Kumiko, and her having to deal with that. Is she going to be bitter toward Kumiko in any way, shape, or form? Or any of these other characters going to be forced to become sort of estranged because of this audition process looming? But with this whole conversation, again, it's a matter of Kosaka trying to finally level the playing field of understanding for Kumiko, where she was all the way at the beginning of the series, as far as having so much faith in their achieving gold and achieving the nationals and all those kinds of things. And she's trying to put this forth in a very magical way, by going to this mountaintop and overlooking the city with all the lights, just being a very beautiful, beautiful and serene scene to set your eyes upon. And this is where she sort of reveals her soul. And I love that Kumiko is very much touched by it, and she can relate to it. You know, there's been a level of them not being able to relate in a similar manner, even though they are coming from maybe two different places, but they're arriving at the same point. And finally we see their paths emotionally are crossing because of what Kosaka reveals about she wants to fly. She wants to be considered special. She wants to be set apart from everyone else. It's not that she feels like she's better than everyone else, or that she has a chip on her shoulder and, you know, nobody can, you know, touch my heights, that kind of situation. It's more so that she wants to shoot for the stars. This is very much literally represented by the scene she brings Kumiko to, and the idea that playing the trumpet will get her there. She wants to, you know, ride this artistic wave to the fullest possible extent, even beyond the in-school band class scenario. And Kumiko's kind of dumbfounded by it, but she's very much, you know, sort of in the siren call aesthetic. She's very much sort of, you know, seduced by this idea. Like, it's tapping into her own, you know, wants and her own dreams and desires of this scenario. And so you cap this all off with this beautiful scene with, you know, they've carried their instruments up the hillside and they're playing this melody that, you know, again, Kumiko is kind of still in the framework of understanding where Kosaka's coming from. She's still learning, and Kosaka's like, you know, you really do have a terrible personality because it's taking you this long to piece it together, to figure it out. You know, you're not very complimentary. You're just kind of dumbstruck. But I love you for that. I love that there is this unabashed seeking of learning and seeking of understanding, and you're a little slow on the uptake, but that's adorable. You're my friend, and let's jam. And so they play this music, and the music is interposed with all of those sequences. As I say, the still shot of Asuka and her little clan seeing the younger girls, and you know, Midori and her little sister encountering Hoozuki, who then breaks down, and it's just melodic and beautiful and dreamlike to play into Kumiko's own words, you know, talking about that whole scene, that whole feeling that she's left with. And we leave off with that cliffhanger, the promise to come of the audition process. And it's like, what's going to happen next? Our characters going to be pitted against each other who were friends a day before? Is the tensions that they've been feeling to perfect their craft, to play their instruments as well as they can, going to now become tantamount to, you know, whether they win or lose it all? You know, that kind of situation. I love this series for that, because I'm so emotionally invested in the characters and feeling compassion toward them and being able to relate to them. Even if you don't have a scenario where you've been in band class like I have, I've had a couple run-ins. I didn't last long because my particular school situation didn't keep that going. Unfortunately, not enough people were interested at the time. But there's still a very relatable level of just humanity and relationships and the way we behave with one another and that kind of situation. And so there is still volumes that this series puts across with its beautiful animation, with its emphasis on music and heartening characters. And I can't wait to see where we're going from here. So I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 8 of Hibike Euphonium, if you've seen it. If not, highly recommend you check out the series. And so, yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.